If you grew up in the American South during the 1970s, you experienced a childhood that was truly one of a kind. Between the sweltering summer heat, the unique culture, and the way things were just done differently below the Mason-Dixon line, Southern kids in the 70s had experiences that folks from other regions, or other decades, simply can't relate to. From the food we ate to the games we played to the unspoken rules we all lived by, growing up Southern in the 70s was special. So grab your sweet tea, sit back, and let's take a nostalgic journey through 15 things that only Southern kids from the 1970s will truly understand. Sunday wasn't just another day, it was the day. Every Southern family had the same routine. Get dressed in your absolute best clothes, head to church for what felt like hours, and then come home to the most incredible spread of food you'd see all week. Sunday dinner wasn't lunch. We called it dinner even though it happened at noon. The table would be loaded with fried chicken, pot roast, collard greens, mac and cheese, cornbread, biscuits, and at least 3 different casseroles. Dessert was mandatory, usually several pies sitting on the counter. This wasn't just a meal, it was a sacred family tradition. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins would gather around the table for hours, eating, talking, and reconnecting. The women had usually been cooking since dawn, and nobody dared leave the table until everyone was stuffed and the stories were all told. Kids today with their casual brunches can't comprehend the significance of Sunday dinner. It was the heartbeat of Southern family life. In the 1970s South, summer days seemed endless. Parents would basically kick us out of the house after breakfast with one simple rule: be home when the streetlights come on. That was it. No cell phones, no GPS tracking, no constant check-ins. We'd roam the neighborhood on our bikes, build forts in the woods, catch lightning bugs in jars, play kick the can, and explore every inch of our territory. We'd only come home when we were thirsty enough to brave asking for water from the hose. Nobody wanted to waste time going inside. When those streetlights flickered on, you'd better believe we pedaled home as fast as our bikes could carry us. Being late meant trouble, and every kid knew it. That freedom to just be kids, unsupervised and unreachable for hours, is something today's overscheduled, constantly monitored children will never experience. Before leather or cloth interiors became standard, most cars had vinyl seats. And if you grew up in the South during the 70s, you know the special kind of torture those seats provided during summer. You'd climb into the car after it had been sitting in the parking lot at church or the grocery store, and those vinyl seats were literally hot enough to fry an egg. The backs of your thighs would stick to the seat, and when you tried to move, it felt like your skin was being peeled off. We'd spend the first 5 minutes of every car ride hovering above the seat, trying not to make contact until the AC kicked in, if your car even had AC. And forget about the metal buckles on seat belts. Those things were like tiny branding irons waiting to burn you. Southern kids from the 70s all have memories of that vinyl seat torture. When you got thirsty playing outside, you didn't run inside for a drink. You went straight to the garden hose, turned it on, and drank that warm, slightly rubbery-tasting water like it was the finest beverage on earth. Nobody worried about whether it was clean or safe. That hose water was just part of summer. You'd spray your friends, fill up water balloons, and hydrate yourself all from the same source. Sometimes you'd let it run for a minute to get the really hot water out, but mostly you just drank whatever came out. Try telling a kid today to drink from the garden hose and watch their parents have a meltdown. But for us Southern kids in the 70s, hose water was just part of life, and somehow we all survived just fine. The soundtrack of Southern summer in the 70s was the constant bang 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 of screen doors. Every house had them, and they all had that spring mechanism that made them slam shut with a satisfying whack. These weren't just doors, they were portals between the air-conditioned, or fan-cooled, inside world and the hot, humid outside world. Kids would run in and out dozens of times a day, and each time, that screen door would slam behind them. Parents would holler, "Don't slam that door." But it was useless. The door was designed to slam. Those screen doors also served another purpose. They let the breeze flow through while keeping the bugs out. Summer evenings meant having your front door open with just the screen door closed, letting in whatever cool air existed while neighbors could wave at each other through the screens. Nothing, and I mean nothing, could make Southern kids move faster than the sound of the ice cream truck coming down the street. You'd hear that tinny music playing from blocks away, and suddenly every kid in the neighborhood was sprinting home to beg their mama for money. In the sweltering southern heat, that ice cream truck was like an oasis in the desert. We'd flag down that truck and agonize over the choices on the side panel: Bomb Pops, Nutty Buddies, Push UPS, Drumsticks, and those character-faced popsicles that never looked like the picture, but we got them anyway. The ice cream man knew every kid in the neighborhood, and he'd cruise through at the same time every day during summer. Sometimes, if you didn't have money, he'd give you credit until tomorrow. That level of community trust doesn't exist anymore, but in the 70s South, the ice cream truck man was practically family. Unlike today, where AC is basically mandatory, many Southern families in the 70s either didn't have air conditioning or only used it sparingly to save on the electric bill. Instead, we relied on box fans, attic fans, and open windows to survive the brutal heat. Every bedroom had at least one box fan going full blast, creating a white noise that helped you sleep. Some families had a whole house attic fan that would suck air through the house at night. We'd sleep with just a sheet, and even that felt like too much. Going to places that had air conditioning, like the grocery store or the movie theater, was a treat. You'd stand in front of the frozen food section just to cool off. And when you'd finally get home to your hot house, you'd just accept it and drink more sweet tea. Southern kids from the 70s built up a heat tolerance that would make today's kids wilt. When Southern families in the 70s talked about vacation, they usually meant one thing: heading to the coast. Whether it was the Gulf Coast, the Atlantic beaches, or the local lake, that's where summer vacation happened. Families would pile into the station wagon with coolers full of sandwiches, towels, floaties, and enough sunscreen. Actually, who are we kidding? We barely use sunscreen and head to the water. We'd stay in modest beach cottages or motels, spend all day in the water until our skin was wrinkled and sunburned, and eat seafood at local dives. These weren't fancy resorts or planned cruise vacations. It was simple, affordable, and focused on being together as a family. The highlight was usually finding good shells, building sandcastles, and maybe going to a local putt-putt course. Those simple beach trips created memories that lasted a lifetime. In the 1970s South, most families had access to maybe 5 or 6 TV channels, and you had to get up to change them manually. There was no remote control for most of us, and certainly no streaming or cable with hundreds of options. Saturday mornings were sacred. That's when all the good cartoons were on. You'd wake up early, pour yourself a bowl of sugary cereal, and plant yourself in front of the TV for hours of Looney Tunes, Scooby-Doo, and the Super Friends. If the weather was bad, you might not get any channels at all because the antenna wasn't picking up the signal. Someone, usually the youngest kid, would have to stand by the TV holding the rabbit ears in just the right position to get a clear picture. Despite the limitations, we never felt like we were missing out. Those few channels provided all the entertainment we needed. Southern dirt isn't like dirt anywhere else. It's red clay, and it stains everything it touches. But that didn't stop us from playing in it. We'd build dams in the ditches after a rainstorm, make mud pies, dig holes to China, and come home looking like we'd been rolling in rust. The ditches were particularly fun. After a good rain, they'd fill with water, and we'd float sticks, race leaves, and try to catch tadpoles and crawdads. We'd come home covered head to toe in that red clay, and our mamas would make us strip down in the garage before we could even think about coming inside. No amount of washing could get that red clay out completely. It would stain your clothes, your shoes, and your skin. But that was just part of being a Southern kid. We wore those red stains like badges of honor. Sweet tea wasn't just a beverage in the 1970s South. It was a way of life. Every household had a pitcher of sweet tea in the refrigerator at all times. Not having sweet tea was like not having milk or bread. It just wasn't done. And we're not talking about slightly sweetened tea. We're talking about tea that had enough sugar dissolved in it while hot to qualify as dessert. You'd pour it over a glass full of ice, and it was the perfect antidote to the oppressive heat. Going to someone's house and being offered sweet tea was a sign of hospitality. Restaurants automatically served it. Church events had giant dispensers of it. Every picnic, barbecue, and family gathering featured sweet tea as the default beverage. Northern sweet tea doesn't count. It's not even close to the real thing. If you didn't grow up Southern, you don't understand that sweet tea is basically liquid gold. Privacy wasn't really a thing in the Southern communities of the 70s. Your neighbors knew your business, your parents' friends knew your business, and most importantly, The church ladies knew everything. If you misbehaved at school, your mama knew about it before you even got home. If you were spotted somewhere you weren't supposed to be, 3 different people would have already called your house. The network of watchful adults was inescapable. At first, this might sound suffocating, but there was a comfort in it too. You were never truly alone or without help. The whole community looked out for each other's kids. If you got hurt playing in someone else's yard, their mama would patch you up. If you needed a ride, someone's daddy would take you. This tight-knit, everybody knows everybody culture was the fabric of Southern life in the 70s, and it shaped how we understood community and belonging. Mason jars weren't just for canning vegetables in the Southern 70s. They were the original multi-purpose container. We drank out of them, caught lightning bugs in them, stored leftovers in them, and used them for just about everything else you can imagine. Many Southern families used mason jars as everyday drinking glasses. They were sturdy, held plenty of liquid, and if one broke, you had dozens more in the pantry. Kids would take them outside filled with Kool-Aid or sweet tea, and nobody worried about using the good glasses. Every summer night, you'd see kids running around with mason jars full of lightning bugs, holes punched in the lids so the bugs could breathe. We'd collect dozens of them, watch them glow, and then let them go before bedtime. Grandmas used them for canning, mamas used them for storing everything from buttons to bacon grease, and kids used them for whatever we needed. The mason jar was the ultimate Southern utility item. In the 1970s South, church wasn't something your family did if they felt like it. It was a mandatory part of life. Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night services were the standard schedule, and you'd better believe kids were expected to be there. We'd sit through services in our uncomfortable church clothes, trying not to fidget while the preacher delivered lengthy sermons in the sweltering heat. Because even if your house didn't have AC, the church definitely didn't or wouldn't turn it on until the place was packed. But church was about more than just the service. It was where your entire social life happened. Youth groups, potluck dinners, vacation Bible school, choir practice. If you wanted to see your friends, you went to church. Your family's reputation was tied to church attendance and participation. Missing church required a serious reason, like being in the hospital. I don't feel like it wasn't an excuse that would fly. Church was the center of Southern community life, and everyone was expected to participate. Nothing, absolutely nothing, identifies a Southern kid from the 70s faster than the automatic "yes, ma'am" and "no, sir" response. This wasn't politeness, it was survival. You did not address an adult without using these terms, period. It didn't matter if it was your parents, your teachers, your friends' parents, the lady at the grocery store, or a complete stranger. Every adult got a ma'am or sir. Forgetting to use these terms would earn you a sharp look and a correction on the spot. This was drilled into us from the moment we could talk. Good manners weren't optional. They were as essential as breathing. Adults didn't ask us to be respectful. They demanded it, and we complied because that's just how things were done. Even today, Southern kids who grew up in the 70s still automatically say, "yes, ma'am," and "no, sir." It's so ingrained that we can't not do it. We say it to people younger than us, to drive-through workers, to anyone and everyone. It's the marker of our upbringing, a badge that identifies us as products of the Southern 70s, where manners and respect were non-negotiable. Growing up Southern in the 1970s gave us a unique childhood filled with heat, hospitality, and a strong sense of community. These weren't just random experiences, they were the building blocks of our identity. The values, traditions, and memories we carry from those days in the South during the 70s shaped who we became as adults. While times have changed and many of these experiences have faded away, those of us who live them will always have a special connection to that time and place. We were Southern kids in the 70s, and that's something to be proud of, y'all.